Okay, so what exactly is this self-mastery thing? I just wanted
Okay.
to know. Yeah.
Yeah, so when we become like masters of ourselves, it's about moving away from being kind of constantly victimized in life. So by being constantly victimized in life, I mean like having having a worldview where others are constantly like causing us problems, and we're
Mhm.
feeling like blaming others all the time. So for example, I could have like, you could say something to me and I could be like, oh, you're making me really angry, or perhaps you say something and I feel an emotion and I could like pause, breathe, look at the emotion,
Yeah.
and then ask, what is that emotion saying to me? And rather than blaming it on you, I could then look,
Mhm.
oh yeah, hang on, my dad used to always say that to me and it always made me feel really little, and now I'm blaming you for saying the same thing when you probably didn't even mean to put me down, you know so then I can go, instead of being like, oh, you're responsible for me feeling bad, I take
Bad.
the
Yeah.
responsibility onto myself. So for example, when we look at sexual self mastery, there's a lot of
Mhm.
like blaming of other people in terms of our our sexual feelings. So for example, there was a massacre, I think last month in America, where an American guy, he went into this massage parlor full of Asians, and I think he shot
Mhm.
like 6 women who were basically women that were giving these erotic massages, and apparently he was then on his way to a house of prostitutes, or a
Mhm.
brothel, when the police caught him. And one thing he said was, I am a sex addict. It's the fault of these women that I'm a sex addict, and I was getting back at them, for causing me this sex addiction, essentially. And you have the same,
Okay.
like, you have incels who are blaming women for no woman will go with me because my genes are no good, my DNA is no good, my appearance is no good. And some of these guys, you look at them and they're fine looking guys, but the fact is their attitude is like so bad, that
Mhm.
you just, when you see someone with such a bad attitude, you just want to kind of pull away from them. And I can tell you as a fact, yeah, a man's appearance has little to do with his ability to attract women. For example, there's a man I know that I would say he's one of the most ugly guys I know. He's bald, he's got bulgy eyes, he's incredibly short, and the guy usually has 5 or 6 lovers at a time, and more women coming and wanting to be after this guy. And I mean, his energy is quite aligned, but also he practices semen retention and meditation,
Mhm.
which means he's basically cultivating and growing his energy. And now, I mean, obviously, we met through this NoFap hashtag, which obviously ties in with semen retention, which means for males to like hold on to their energy. And when one's holding on to their energy and increasing their energy, obviously that's like halfway, because it's great to increase your energy. But if you have loads of bad energy, you need to be careful about just duplicating and increasing bad energy.
Yeah.
So it's important to also um, be increasing this energy in a good way. And the most simple hack I would give about how to do that is do this from a place of self-love. Hold on to your energy with a feeling of like it really being an act of love and an act of kind of connection, and almost like making love with yourself. So
Mhm.
instead of, then for example, if you look at some monks, like typically the European style Catholic monks, they do everything to avoid any triggers which is going to stimulate their sexual energy,
Yeah.
because they're repressing their sexual energy, basically, which means that the energy is going to go toxic. Which, when you look at what happened in the Catholic Church with all the pedophilia and so on, is actually unsurprising, because these guys are repressing their sexual energy. And in some way, it always wants to move, because energy always wants to move and it always wants to be active. But when we avoid loss of sexual energy through it's actually having sex in the wrong way, masturbating in the wrong way, so doing so in a way that's like losing energy. um we then have a lot of energy coming into our bodies. So what's important then is that that energy is circulating in our bodies, which means that basically, the number one way to make sure that energy is moving up the body is just to feel love. you know. So actually having connections with a female while you're practicing semen retention is a positive thing, because that helps to move the energy. But you just need to make sure you're not getting stuck on certain emotions, but you're just allowing movement, you know,
Yeah.
to happen, basically. And when you look at Taoist monks and Taoist nuns, interestingly enough, well, I'm a Taoist nun, and we don't
Okay.
have any rules around, you know, there's no prohibition on eating meat, drinking alcohol, there's no prohibition on having sex, although, or masturbation, in fact. But the point is that when we do it in a way to cultivate energy. So for example, to me, the way most people have sex and the way most people masturbate, it's almost a little horrifying to me, you know, because to me, the sexual energy is a very, very sacred thing that I want
It
to
is.
pull into my body, you know. And there's nothing absolutely wrong with sensuality, with nudity, with being connected with ourselves, with attraction. But if I actually feel attraction with another person, you know, in a symbiotic way with them, I use this to cultivate more energy and to share energy between me and them. And it's the same thing, for example, if you feel like flirting with a woman, you know, and you can make eye contact, you can smile, you can feel the energy, but then actually sit with the energy and allow the energy to flow instead of having this urgency to move into the next step. A bit like many people that feel aroused, and then there's an urgency to masturbate and to actually lose the
Exactly.
life force energy.
You have to retain in that particular moment, and you have to harvest it. That's what you're saying, right?
Exactly. I mean, I think the whole thing of like slowing down the
Yeah.
process is essential. It's like if you're going through the most beautiful park and you run through the park, you'll miss so much details. But if you go through the park and you're walking slowly and you're looking at the trees, the flowers, the bees, the insects, taking it all in,
I
you'll be
get it. Yeah.
appreciating so much more. And it's the same with the sexual process. And I
Yeah.
think that what's going wrong with this is because we live in these cultures. For example, if you look at the three religions of the Europe and the Middle East, every one of those religions, apart from, you could say, perhaps less in Judaism to some extent, but certainly the Christianity definitely like demonizes sexual feelings. In Islam, there certainly is not much the way the religion is practiced as well. There's not too much allowance of the sacredness of sexuality. So the very,
Indeed.
very majority of us, of course, then India, where you are from, India was colonized by the British, and the British this was at a time of Queen Victoria, which is known Victorian morality. We say this, you know, to actually mean sort of repression of sexuality, being kind of scared of showing a little bit of arm or whatever, you know. So England did, you know, even though England didn't actually destroy the culture and the religion, there definitely was like this influence of the Victorian morality onto especially like higher class Indians, you know, which then ended up that the British taught the Indians to then start indoctrinating their children with guilt and shame around sex as well, you know. So it's kind of something that's been spread around the world. It's certainly been spread to the Americas by the Catholicism specifically, you know. But if you look at, for example, we were talking about that Indian island. What's the island called again, where nobody's allowed?
Andaman and Nicobar.
Name it
Andaman
again?
and Andaman and Nicobar Islands.
Andaman and Nicobar Island, you see.
Yeah.
And when you see the very few videos that you can see, you know, and the people, they're standing there and they're naked and they're just so innocent, you know, with each other. And when you find tribes which have not been affected by what we call civilization,
Civilization. Yeah.
meaning Western cultural colonialism, you know,
The
so-called
modern definition. Yeah.
civilization, they're so comfortable, you know, with their own sexuality, and they're just naked. They're, for example, some tribes, they all live together in one room. The people will be having sex, but it's not like the atmosphere of an orgy, which you would expect if people were having sex, you know, in a room together and they were all Western people, you know. Because you do have some sex clubs where people do go and all have sex in the same room together, but it's very different sort of vibes than you find in these tribes. And these tribes, they're just, nobody told them when they were growing up that their sexual energy was something to feel ashamed about. So essentially they've just grown up feeling totally in harmony and balance. So what happens when we, for example, imagine I grew up, my parents are hardcore Christians, when they started kind of noticing anything to do with my sexuality, I was severely admonished, told I must never masturbate, So what happens when you start feeling horny? Straight away,
Uh-huh.
those feelings, when the parents told us this and that, those feelings are going to come up, they're going to arise. And the first thing that kicks in, guilt and shame, and I would
Yeah.
say that even though the majority of people are not aware of it, this is actually the process going on in the majority of the so-called civilized, or more accurately called colonialized people, because even though obviously England has left India, Africa has been left by the colonists, there still is probably an even stronger mental colonization of these, through television, through mobile phones, through internet and media and
Indeed,
so on.
yes.
You know,
There's a stigma and there's a shame attached to even to this kind of conversation in 21st century. If we will visit this country and we will try to study and observe the things, there is a lot of shame that is attached to sexual conversations.
yeah, in many, many parts of the world, thankfully there are still, as far as I'm aware, some kind of matriarchal cultures in India. I have a few friends from Kerala, and it's very
Mhm.
interesting what they've told me. And they definitely have like a much more like balanced approach towards women than some of the other Indians that I've spoken to, And also I have a friend in Ghana. He's doing actual tantric massage in Ghana. And I think he was telling me one of the cultures is a matriarchal culture. So even, for example, all the meetings are held by the women, and the men are not even allowed to be part of like making decisions, in the meetings. Yeah. However, that they're much more balanced about their sexuality. And I also noticed with this friend, he just has a very like balanced attitude, towards women, because he's actually not being dominated by guilt and shame, which I think is actually like the number one thing that's ruining it. I think particularly men's ability to relate to women, that there's all this guilt and shame in the way, and they have no tools to be able to deal with it. So for example, with most people, if you feel a negative emotion, like for example, I start feeling angry, anybody pretty much is going to tell me control your anger, i.e.
Exactly.
repress your anger, i.e. push it down. So what happens if you go on top of, a volcano or a spring that's trying to come up and push it down? It's just going to come more and more. So this is actually leading to increase of people's anger. I mean, I actually tell people when I'm coaching, I say, embrace your anger, give love to your anger, give love to that part of you that is angry. And the same with whichever part is feeling guilt and shame. And I went absolutely through this process, as well. For example, as a teenager, I'd feel a sexual arousal. I'd immediately feel like there was a need to have sex or whatever. I'd basically um like, yeah, I just have sex, but very quick, without a foreplay and so on, with my partner. And but really, like, I was actually running away from these messages, that my
Mhm.
that my parents had told me to feel ashamed about my sexuality. And actually, I was really like sexually shut down. I wasn't really feeling anything. This is what happens to a woman when she's sexually blocked. When a man is sexually blocked, he tends to have premature ejaculation. So come very quickly, strong sexual urges, maybe needing to masturbate a lot. This is signs of what we call in Tantra, actually, like an energetic sexual blockage. So for me, it was just manifesting as like not really anything, wanting to have sex, but then it was happening and I wasn't getting an orgasm, I wasn't feeling, so then I started looking into things, and I came across Taoism, and I found out about Taoism and the art of cultivating your energy, cultivating your sexual energy. And I started to find out that basically everything that I thought, everything I'd been told in my culture, everything that Hollywood tells us, the soap operas tell us, let alone the porn industry, which is, even worse. Yeah, but Hollywood is almost as bad, almost worse in a way. Everything that
It
I'd
is
been
just
told
it is just trying to
wrong.
represent a picture that is not real, and it has no
Absolutely.
relevance to the real grounds.
Absolutely. But now, I mean, I remember I didn't watch any Hollywood movies for about 10 years. And then I watched a few, and you see them and they kind of look at each other, they're attracted, and then bam, it's like they're having sex like a bunch of, animals. But I've even seen animals spending more time courting each other, than you see in the movie, and you're like, my God, when I was growing up, they would like smile, seduce, maybe there'd be like a kiss, you'd see a bit of her
Mhm.
leg, he'd stroke her leg, then it would zoom out, and it was so sensual, and it was leaving so much possibility, so much imagination. Whereas what you see with this now, you know, in mainstream videos, in Netflix and so on, it's like the sexual energy rises and they just want to crush it, basically.
And they leave
You know?
nothing to you for imagination. There's nothing for imagination. Everything is just like it's visible. They leave nothing for you to imagine. They
Exactly. And
things are becoming so obvious.
imagination is powerful, you know,
Yeah.
imagination is powerful. And so I started learning about this Taoist stuff. The first thing actually was to learn to come to a relationship with my own emotions, you know, because
Mhm.
while we're repressing our emotions, you know, we're not able to really be a master of ourselves, and we're certainly not able to be a sexual master, and we're not able to also experience sensuality and sexual pleasure in the way that we potentially are able to do so, you know. So we often think there's good emotions, bad emotions. So, you know, and I still find myself doing this. Say I see you, hi Jade, how are you? I'm great, I'm happy. Well, maybe I'm not, maybe you're not, but this is what we all think we have to say, you know. And sometimes, obviously, you know, if we're just all the time complaining about our problems and not moving through, it's a negative thing. But at the same time, you know, being able to also be in negative emotions and be comfortable in those negative emotions is like essential, you know.
Yeah.
So by this I mean, you know, to be okay to say, you know, for example, I think that when we look at men often find it quite easy to be like, I'm so angry, I'm going to punch you, you know. But how many men would be able to then say, or say, for example, the girlfriend cheats on them and they feel really hurt? A lot of men, the majority of men will go, she's a bitch, she's a slut. What about actually going, that really hurt me, that makes me feel really, really bad? Yeah, like I feel violated, you know. And obviously, like, there's a whole sort of like, when we look at the cultural, let's say like the cultural uh sort of normality around, for example, if I said to you, somebody, you know, touched my breast
Mhm.
without my permission, I feel violated.
Yeah.
That would be
That's for
fine,
sure.
that would be normal. If I said, oh, my boyfriend cheated on me, I feel violated, you know, people would be like, well, you got to deal with it. Yeah, maybe he didn't like you. Yeah, maybe you weren't doing it for him. You know, this is kind of the reaction people often will give. And these are the kind of traumas that often are what men experience. So it's kind of, things get topped up on top of more things on top of more things, and then men just are having like a really hard time just to express their feelings in an honest, authentic way. So
That
instead
is
of
true.
saying, yeah, instead of talking about the process of, like, for example, I mean, another thing that it's unfortunate that actually most people, they won't remember it, but the mother maybe didn't cuddle, didn't show affection. This is also something that can cause a lot of like trauma, basically, you know, that that yeah, like, it's so important to start getting into this healthy relationship with our emotions. So for men, when they're not in this healthy relationship with their emotions, they're going to tend to like just go at sex, rush, come really quickly, and often in a way that's going to leave the woman just like, oh, this is not nice. So often actually the
Mhm.
wife will stop wanting to have sex, you know, as well, then, or the girlfriend will leave them, you know. And the same, the women tend to repress their anger. So the women are kind of allowed to show, oh, I'm sad, oh, I'm whatever, but she's not supposed to show her anger. So when she represses her anger, it's like everything shuts down, there's no orgasms and so on, you know. So so what I realized was I needed to really start getting in touch with these emotions, owning these emotions, and being able to say, you know, for example, like, even like, if you know, something wasn't comfortable, but to be able to put it out there and go, no, I'm not okay with this. Because as with the upbringing, as many women, we're taught, you know, we can't say things, we can't express, you know, that we don't like something, we can't put out boundaries, because it's kind of the men's world, which is true, it is the man's world. But then the man isn't happy in the man's world, the woman's not happy in the man's world, you know. Really, it needs to be the world for everybody, you know.
That's true. That's how it should
Yeah,
be.
yeah. And then, you know, for men, you know, like to be really like a great lover, but then also to have a lot of his own personal energy, he really needs to be in control of his ejaculation, you know, because if the
Indeed.
ejaculation is happening without you being in control of it, you're not really fully going to feel a man, you know?
Yeah. So how exactly do you suggest youth or the men today to have control over these things or these circumstances?
Okay, so I suggest, you know, there's a lot of people they're teaching about controlling it. You know, for example, one of the techniques a lot of people are teaching to control it is to squeeze your pelvic floor very
Mhm.
tight. You know, personally, I see it as you need to create a relationship of harmony with your own sexual energy. So imagine you have a wife, right? And you're always controlling your wife. You're going to have
Mhm.
problems somewhere down the line. Even if at the
Yeah.
beginning she's going, okay, okay, and listening to everything, in the end, what's going to happen? She's not going to have your interest in mind. She's maybe not going to have sex with you because she doesn't want to be controlled all the time. Whereas if you have a wife and you create a relationship where you're always seducing her, you're being lovely to her, you're showing you care about her, you're entering into a kind of dance like relationship, you know,
Yeah.
and so it's like you've got this good relationship with your wife, and then you know she will back you up and she will be there for you when you're having a hard time, and you want the same relationship with your sexual energy, which means
Mhm.
the relationship with your body. And the number one tip,
Okay.
let's talk about this today. So the number one tip is your breath. Your
Mhm.
breath is essential. So of course we know we have lungs, that the lungs are under the ribs. They're, you know, at the top of the chest. You know, we all know the lungs are
Mhm.
here. I'm just going to move the computer actually so I can demonstrate a bit better what I'm talking about. Move it a little bit more.
It's a
Okay.
bit
So
blurry, I think.
the lungs are here.
Yeah.
And at the bottom of the rib cage, we have a set of muscles which are called the thoracic diaphragm.
Yeah.
Okay. So these muscles are what make us breathe on our own
Mhm.
without forcing the breath to happen. Okay. So you have
Okay.
a thoracic diaphragm, you have a pelvic diaphragm, you have diaphragm in the neck, in the bottom of the skull. There's actually 7 of these diaphragms. Okay. And having sex, being in control of our orgasm, both as males and females, has a huge amount to do with whether these diaphragms are working and whether
Mhm.
the breathing is happening naturally. So in the majority of people living in a westernized way, where there's stress and so on, it's not happening, right? So if you just stop and watch yourself breathing, okay, and just put your hand over your belly and watch what happens to your hands. So I'm going to just pause for a minute.
Okay.
Can you see the movement of my hands?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
So
coming
what's
up and it's going
happening?
down.
I'm breathing in a relaxed way. And when I'm breathing in this way, this diaphragm is moving.
Mhm.
More importantly, the pelvic floor and the diaphragm that holds the bladder in place, these
Mhm.
are working too, which means they're getting exercised. So
Yeah.
they're basically very gently release, contract with the breath. Now, most people who talk about this will tell the men and the women, in fact, start squeezing really, really tight to strengthen this muscle. Now,
Muscle.
it's not
Yeah.
one muscle. It's actually about 16 different muscles and tendons all interlocking. And imagine one of those muscles is too tight, another is too loose. It's not going to work properly.
Good.
So
Yeah.
actually, we need to watch out this over tensing, you know. So when we talk about these sexual problems, they're very much tied in with bladder problems as well, you know, and these tend to affect women more. It's also prostate problems. It's all the same thing, because when these muscles, some of them may be too tight, some of them may be too loose, it's affecting the prostate, it's affecting obviously the sexual function, the urinary function as well. So I mean, I've learned a lot of different techniques teaching men how to how to control, you know, or let's say what I say, master their sexual energy. There's another one we can teach, but it will take like a whole video, but we can do a whole video teaching it. It's called the microcosmic orbit. This is the best way to move the energy inside your body. It's magic. Like, it really has so many effects on your sexual energy, on your mental energy, on your emotions, on your physical health, your immune system. It's fantastic for your immune system. If you're doing this exercise, you have nothing to worry about with COVID, for example, you know, because it's just keeping you in a good state of health, you know. So the number one thing, what I've realized with my clients, is it comes down to breathing. Now, if the person is breathing in a healthy way, they're able. So what I suggest is, try to at least once a day lie down and spend between 10 and 20 minutes breathing in and out with your belly rising and falling.
Okay.
You can put a book on your belly to start noticing, just to make sure it's happening. And sometimes it can be difficult, you know, it's not working properly. What I suggest with this exercise, don't suck in, but breathe out, really blow out far, and then just open the mouth on its own. Let the breath come in on its own. So,
Okay.
so what you want to do, what you're trying to do is you're trying to activate this muscle to suck the breath in, and then it's going to start going into a cycle. So for many people, it will take a lot of work to get just this breathing going properly, but it's the foundation for everything. It's the most
Everything, yeah.
essential thing, because when this breathing is going properly, it also gives us the ability to just pause, to relax, because we're living in a relaxed way. When that breathing's not properly working, we're actually living in flight or fight. So it's the number one thing about creating this relationship with your body, because if you don't have a relationship with your breath, you can just forget about anything else. You know, forget about controlling your sexual energy if you can't control your breath. You know, it's almost like if you can't control the very well-behaved dog, how are you going to control the troublesome dog? You know,
Exactly.
because the sexual energy is
And
a little bit of a troublesome dog, only because we have such a bad relationship with it. But it's a bit like,
yeah,
you know, if you have a child, you never hug it, you never tell it what to do, you feed it every other day, it's having to go in the bins to get its food out. That child isn't going to listen to you, you know. If you're
exactly.
giving the kid lots of meals, taking it, you know, doing things with it, talking, teaching, that child's going to listen to you, you know. You know, most people, we have this relationship where our sexual energy is a rebellious child because we haven't been nurturing it, you know.
Exactly. That's true.
Mm.
And just to let you know that this is my third day of the training that you suggested me to breathe.
Okay.
Uh, and I've been observing some of the changes since last 2 days.
Okay.
I've been practicing it, and because day before yesterday I was having this headache, and I just thought of taking a medicine. Instead, I just tried to breathe in properly, like you said, for 10 minutes, and guess what? Just my headache just vanished.
It's so powerful, you know. And if
Yeah,
something starts stressing me, I notice my body starts aching, it's hurting, it's and
yeah,
I lie down and do this breath. And what I do is I get into it almost like, you know, it can become the ultimate pleasure, just breathing properly.
exactly.
Yeah. Because with every exhale, you're breathing out tension, you're breathing in relaxation. And it's like this blissful feeling just grows and grows. And sometimes eventually your whole body can start to vibrate. Just, it's like an energy orgasm, actually, just through
Yeah.
this breathing, you know?
So
So,
for last 2 days,
oh,
I'm trying to remind myself of breathing, and whenever I'm getting the time, even when I'm driving or I'm doing some work, whenever I'm getting reminded of breathing, I just start breathing properly. And the moment I start it, I just get relaxed, even
yeah,
when I'm driving.
yeah.
So that's how it is going right now.
Wonderful. Yeah, because I mean, I still catch myself, you know, because
Mhm.
for example, I do a lot of like speaking, you know, like on video, speaking with clients. And in the bits where I'm silent, you know, I really just go back into my breath, you know, But I guess in a way I can say now it's my habit. You know, maybe some people, they might have the habit to pick up the cigarette to relax them. I pick up my breath to relax me, you know.
Okay.
And when I give body work to my clients, massage, I always tell them to breathe. That's their only job, breathe. And then we're going to get the tension out of the body with your breath. And
Mhm.
sometimes I do exaggerated breathing, and I try to synchronize our breathing together. So we're both breathing in the relaxation from the universe and breathing out the tension, you know.
Yeah.
And even just finding, for example, another person to do breathing together with, you know. For example, if you're a man, you're practicing semen retention and celibacy, not having sex, you know, or maybe you have a partner, you want to have sex, but before the sex, do the breathing together for 10-20 minutes. Just sit cross-legged opposite, relax together, look in the eyes, breathe together. And it's you
Nice.
can start transforming the energy and go into making love or self-pleasuring, which is making love to ourselves. Go into it really as an act of love. So I mean, I would say the majority of people masturbate as an act of self-hatred, you know.
Yeah, that's
In
true.
Taoism, we massage our sexual organs. We don't call it masturbation. People use the term conscious self-pleasuring. We would traditionally call it self-massage, but it's a very, very gentle, slow massage where we're waking up energy and meditating with it, you know. And I believe that both self-pleasuring and making love should be entered into as a meditation.